Question 1. How have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. In my opinion, one of the worst attacks over the last 20 years was the 9/11 attack. This really opened our eyes as Americans and realized that we as a nation was extremely vulnerable. Um, this realization really kind of struck with organizations and realized that their lack of emergency preparedness plans was just inadequate. Um, that they should have probably put more of an emphasis on safety. And even the emergency responders who responded to the incident really did not have a plan because nothing like this had ever happened before. The casualties, um, the hijackers, and also all the people who were injured it was just a catastrophe. Um, so viewing that as an American pushing through all the changes, changes in how 911 responders respond to those emergencies. Um, how evacuation plans need to be in place to be able to take care of all of the injured or non-injured employees. Um, Even changes in the cockpit were made to close off those cockpits to where people were not able to access them now. So that was just some of the changes that were created. But then also, what else happened in America was that we followed with a huge recession, with wars that followed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Um, Organizations had to take government bailouts, laying off employees to stay under on their overhead. So the job market took a loss. Trading overseas took a loss. There was just so much to learn and to gain from this that we as Americans realized that we were not prepared for these issues throughout the changes in our organization. So from an organizational psychologist point of view, we realize that we can create plans to help out. So some of these plans are that organizational psychologists can go in and create our socialization plans, motivation, health and well-being, leadership plans, social norms, and then also fairness throughout the hierarchies of controls, and also through hiring as well. Question 2. Describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is the program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? So I believe that the socialization process in the graduate students program at Liberty University is successful in socializing newcomers at the university. So Liberty kind of uses a form of sequential socialization, and this is just basically that there are clearly defined sequence of steps. So what are the steps? Well, that would be the undergraduate program. Students are learning some of the core components of the psychology program, and then they're also given kind of a little small taste of what that master's program is going to be like. And then that way they can kind of pick where they want to go at once they leave the undergrad portion of that. Then the master's program is going to take that little bit of knowledge that was gained, and now it's going to tailor it to more of a professional outlook. So, you're going to dig more deeper into some of the things that you want to learn about as far as what your field is when you graduate. So sometimes there's an internship. This is going to kind of mesh those two worlds, with one being professional, the other being the academic. So now you're going to try and go outside and see what that looks like on the outside. So that kind of helps to establish some form of embeddedness in a way. Kind of gives you a taste of that embeddedness. So then after that, obviously, if you wanted to proceed into the doctorate program here, you could do that. That's going to give you that 100% knowledge of your field of whatever program you're in, and then it's also going to give you that degree that you want as well. That would be the academia degree. So creating that job embeddedness in the field of organizational psychology through Liberty helps the students understand both of those, organization and academics. Organizational psychology has changed over the last 20 years. For instance, like we had just discussed with the World Trade Center, a lot of the programs that are, a lot of the jobs that are coming available are because of people are retiring, and there's a new generation of students and people who are coming in that the organization is not tailored to. And so that can really help out organizational psychologists be able to say, we can take what you know, and we can take what the organization offers, and we can kind of combine those two for you to have a really good fit and to stay here and retire here. And that's what we're looking for, is that 20 years, that student who is a 20-year employee. And so being able to kind of, go through that socialization through Liberty will also help once you get out into the job market. And so that's really important. That helps you gain those skills and values, but it also helps you gain the attitude of that organization to where you can, stick in there for a longer period of time. All right, question 3. How can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? So work-family conflict is going to affect over 70% of employees in all organizations. So what does that really mean from an organization's point of view? Well, the work-family conflict, let's go ahead and define that first. That's typically a dual earning couples, or some kind of conflict that's going to affect family, that's going to affect work, or work that's going to affect family. So some of these families that could affect work conflicts would be child care pickup. If there was an issue with your child during the day, who would go and pick up that child? Who's going to be able to leave work and go pick up the child at the daycare? And then also there's the other aspect of that, which is the elder care. I've got an elder adult who's at the house, and I may need to go and take care of them as well. So elder care is just another kind of caregiving other side of that. A lot of people think it's just child care, but really there's more to it than that. So work-family conflicts typically are going to involve depression, hypertension. They're also going to look at substance abuse, supervisor abuse, absenteeism, and then also just their overall safety, occupational safety. So organizations need to be able to see this and to be able to, become proactive and say, hey, we want to be able to protect our employees. We want to be able to keep these employees because they do a good job. So we're going to implement some policies. So let's discuss some policies. Policies for the work-family policies, that would be, as mentioned, elder care, but in the organization, parenting, education, volunteering, helping each other out, and then there's also self-care. So these policies can show the employee that the organization cares for them and for their well-being. Some benefits that an organization could offer could also be known as on-site daycare, exercise facilities, flex time, telecommuting, and job sharing. Job sharing is when there are 2 part-time employees and they share the duties of an on-time, a full-time employee. So changing these policies and benefits throughout the organization, this will allow organizations to be able to hire those employees who are, who have those family concepts. And typically the employees who are family oriented are going to stay longer in the position because they don't want to have to worry about finding another job and losing money during that time. But there's also a lot of other issues that can occur, and that's substance abuse problems. And so substance abuse would also add to that depression, occupational safety, and then also absenteeism. So cutting down on those kind of employees will allow you to not have those issues with overhead and employees missing time. So giving benefits and employees to the employee is going to help your organization maintain that positive outlook for a longer period of time, which is also going to cut down on your salary. So if you are offering benefits and policies to your employees, then you can actually market your jobs in less salaries, but give them the benefits and those policy changes that are going to impact them for a longer period of time. So in that way, you will gain that employee that you're looking for. Question 4. Imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. Well, what techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? So the first thing that I would want to do as a supervisor to create this job performance plan would be able to pull reliable and valid measurements of this employee's job. So I would go through his job description, and I would pull out some core concepts that are very unique and very easy for this employee to be able to maximize the benefits every single year. So getting these measures, then I would be able to pull together 4 to 5 elements that would be important for the employee to meet throughout the year. So meeting the typical job requirements, of how many callbacks did this person have? That could be one element. Their tools and materials, did they have all their materials? Did they organize their materials? Their truck, if they were, had a truck, or if they had an office, organization. And then also I could throw in there like safety, for instance. If I wanted them to become, have an element of safety throughout the year, I could throw that in there as well and say, how did you meet this requirement, and how did you educate other people throughout the year? Equipment lists. I could see, how they've taken care of the equipment throughout the year as well. So this allows me to kind of not only see the importance of their job, but that also gives me the ability to say, hey, I'm not only asking you to meet your elements, I'm also asking you to exceed your elements. And so I think that is going to be the better option. And then once I write down these elements, I'm going to go to the employee and I'm going to say, hey, this is what I think are fair elements. What do you think throughout this year? Are these good elements for you? Yes. All right. So let's go ahead and let's sign off on this. This is what your assessment is going to be for this year, and then that way we're both on the same page. That employee knows what he needs to do or she needs to do to meet these requirements. I know what this employee needs to do to meet these requirements. 6-month mark, we go back, we look at it again, go in there and look at the assessment. Yes, you're doing a great job. Now you really could use some more of this to, get more benefits, more time off, blah, blah, blah. And then finally at that 1-year mark, this is going to be how the employee is going to be able to maximize their points at the end of the year. They're going to write down elements and how they exceeded these elements. And then I, as a supervisor, can go in there and just look and say, okay, yes, you did. No, you didn't. So that's I feel like that's a really good assessment of the employee. Question 5. What are some possible organizational constraints, and how can they lead to counterproductive work behaviors? Organizations are going to vary between what's important and what constraints are important and what are not important. So I feel like business model, strategy, processes, and organizational structure, leadership, and then also culture are important constraints. So how can counterproductive work behaviors jeopardize those constraints. So I feel like these counterproductive work behaviors are kind of like harm that the person does to the organization, or they try to do to people in the organization. And so some of these constraints are typically theft, destruction of property, misuse of information, misuse of time, resources, unsafe behavior, poor attendance, poor quality work, alcohol use, drug use, inappropriate verbal action, and then also inappropriate physical action. So these are typically what employees are going to try to do throughout the organization. These are those counterproductive work behaviors that can happen in organizations. So why do these occur? Some of these occur just because people are just bad apples. And that means that people are just going to do what they want to do when they want to do it for no reason. And you can't really change that. So looking more into in depth onto why these behaviors are going to occur, that's going to be conscientiousness, that's going to be trait anger, that's going to be self-control, and that's also going to be narcissism. So there's different types of those counterproductives, and these are kind of like the four overall encompassing behaviors. So conscientiousness is going to be something that employees are not even really going to care a great deal about their actions. They could care less about the fear of consequences and reprisal. They just don't care. They're kind of like the bad apple. Trait anger, again, not really going to be a big deal. They don't care if they're frustrated or angry at the workplace. They're going to do it anyway. Self-control issues. People can't control their impulses. Narcissism, people have this inflated sense of self-worth, and they get upset when employees don't have that same self-worth for them. So some of the other counterproductive work behaviors can be stress, injustice, and then also different kinds of norms that can be associated with that. For instance, alcohol use, unsafe behaviors, abusive behaviors. Withdrawal would be a good norm that could be kind of an issue. Stress, obviously, that's going to be a very important aspect as you as a supervisor moves forward. But being able to eliminate all these things is going to be tough for the organization. So becoming proactive and understanding that these things can occur, the best thing to do is try to stop them before they do occur. Not becoming reactive and try to change policies and plans after the fact, but be able to really create good policies and plans for the employees that they can strive in, and that they are more than happy to work for your organization and be there for that 20-year retired employee. So, thank you.